Welcome back to the channel. If you have ever wondered what the purple gold ore from Cripple Creek looks like up close, then this specimen is going to blow your mind. We have Calaverite, a rare gold telluride, riding in and around rich, royal purple fluorite, all sitting on phonolite from one of Colorado's most legendary gold districts. Stick with me, because this one is not just a pretty cabinet piece. It is a compact, high country lesson in volcanic-hosted gold, tellurides, and why Cripple Creek became famous. And before we get into it, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you do not miss the next video. Today, we are in Colorado, in the Cripple Creek District, at the Cresson Mine. This is Calaverite with purple fluorite on phonolite, and that is a classic Cripple Creek statement. Because phonolite is one of the signature volcanic rocks tied to this district's unusual gold telluride mineralization. This is a cabinet-sized piece measuring about 10 by 6.5 by 3.5 centimeters, and it weighs 214 grams. And here is what I want you to be watching for when we do the slow tour in a moment. Notice how the purple fluorite forms bold patches and veins against the gray phonolite, and how the metallic telluride mineralization tends to sit along edges, seams, and fracture zones. That distribution is a direct clue to how fluids moved through this rock and where the gold actually dropped out. Let's get things going by switching over to the map and orienting ourselves to the location of the Cresson Mine in Colorado. We will start out by zooming into the United States and onto the great state of Colorado. Then we will slide into the central part of the state along the Front Range, west of Colorado Springs, and near Pikes Peak, where high peaks, old mining camps, and volcanic centers all overlap. Moving in closer, we focus on the Cripple Creek mining district from the air, and you will immediately notice the huge Cripple Creek and Victor Gold Mine. This mine has been in operation since 1995, and it is a modern open-pit mine that was developed over many of the famous historic mines in the district, including the Cresson Mine. Now we will pause right here, because this is important. Cripple Creek is not a typical gold in quartz vein district. This is a volcanic system with alkaline intrusions and explosive breccias, and it is famous for gold occurring in telluride minerals. The pit of the Cripple Creek and Victor Gold Mine sits roughly over the Cripple Creek diatreme, which is the volcanic feature that created the conditions for the rich mineralization here. Okay, now we are going to transition to 3D and look at the rugged, pine-covered high country terrain around Cripple Creek and Victor, where mines were driven into volcanic rock, and where high-grade telluride ore built one of the most important gold districts in Colorado history. Alright, now that you have a good sense of where this specimen came from, let's examine the mineralogy and texture, because this piece is all about contrast. First, the foundation. The host rock is phonolite. Phonolite is a fine-grained volcanic rock, and in hand specimen, it often shows as a tough, grey matrix that can look massive and subtly mottled. On this piece, the phonolite acts like a dark stage that makes the fluorite and the metallic minerals stand out. It also tells us that we are in a very specific geologic environment, a volcanic center where unusual magmas and hydrothermal fluids can produce unusual gold chemistry. Now, let your eyes lock onto the color. The fluorite here really does read as royal purple, and it is not a washed-out tint. It shows up in bold patches and masses along the face of the specimen, and it rides fractures and irregular zones in a way that looks like true vein fill or fracture coating rather than a random stain. Fluorite is calcium fluoride, and in hydrothermal systems, it is a classic indicator mineral for fluorine-rich fluids. In other words, that purple is not just pretty, it is telling you something about the chemistry of the fluids that moved through this rock. Next, look for the metallic glint. Calaverite is a gold telluride mineral, and depending on grain size and lighting, it can show a bright metallic luster that ranges from silvery to brassy to pale gold. On the faces of this piece, the telluride mineralization appears as scattered metallic flecks and small patches nestled right in with the fluorite and along the darker seams. In rotation, those metallic areas tend to flash differently than pyrite. Pyrite gives you a brassy sparkle, often more uniform. Telluride minerals can look a bit more silvery gold and can appear in irregular blebs and streaks that feel more like smears along fractures. On a specimen like this, the key visual is that the metal is not distributed evenly. It is concentrated in the same structural zones that host the fluorite, which is exactly what you want to see for a fracture-controlled hydrothermal system. What makes this piece especially educational is that it shows you a very common relationship in ore formation. Open pathways first, then mineral fill. The phonolite is fractured. Fluids move through those fractures. Fluorite precipitates as the system cools or chemistry changes. Then, in the right microenvironments, often along edges, pressure shadows, or reactive boundaries, the gold tellurides precipitate. So when you see purple fluorite paired with metallic telluride mineralization along the same structural network, you are basically reading the plumbing map of the ore. Flip to the back and you get a different texture story. The backside is more massive and rock dominant, with less show and more structure. The kind of view that reminds you this was not created as a display piece in nature. It was created as rock that got fractured, altered, and mineralized, and then later freed from underground. That front and back contrast is one of the best things about cabinet pieces from ore districts, because you get both the specimen face and the geologic context in one piece. Now let's talk about the locality and why the Cresson Mine name matters. The Cripple Creek District is one of the iconic gold camps of the American West, and it rose during the late 19th century as miners realized that the volcanic rocks here carried extraordinary gold values. What made the district truly distinctive was the abundance of telluride ores, gold and silver tied up in telluride minerals rather than simply native metal in quartz veins. The Cresson Mine is one of the famous producers associated with this district, and specimens like this capture exactly why collectors and geologists love Cripple Creek. The mineralogy is not generic, it is signature. Geologically speaking, this is an alkaline-related gold telluride system associated with a volcanic complex and intrusive rocks like phonolite. In plain language, you have a volcano-plutonic environment where magma and heat drive hydrothermal circulation. Fluids rise through fractures, breccias, and intrusive contacts. Those fluids carry metals, sulfur, and tellurium, plus fluorine in many cases. Then, as temperature drops, pressure drops, or fluids mix and react, minerals precipitate in stages. Fluorite is a great marker for fluorine-rich fluids and can occur late or alongside other hydrothermal minerals. Calaverite forms when gold meets tellurium under the right conditions. And that is one reason Cripple Creek is such a classic district. The chemistry and fluid evolution favored tellurides. And here is the big tieback to what you can see on this specimen. Structure controls everything. The fluorite and calaverite are not just in the rock. They are in pathways, fractures, seams, and zones of weakness. That is exactly what you would predict for a system where repeated pulses of fluid exploited the same openings over and over again, each pulse leaving a slightly different mineral signature behind. From a collector standpoint, this piece checks all the boxes. Provenance is outstanding with the Cresson Mine and the Cripple Creek District. The color contrast is strong. Royal purple fluorite against grey phonolite with metallic telluride highlights, which makes it display beautifully even from a distance. And scientifically, it is a fantastic teaching specimen because it represents a deposit style that is genuinely different from the classic gold quartz vein story. If you want a piece that helps you explain why Cripple Creek is special, this is exactly the kind of specimen you show. Fluorine-rich gangue, volcanic host rock, and gold carried as telluride minerals. Alright, let's wrap it up with a quick summary. This is a cabinet piece of calaverite with fluorite on phonolite from the Cresson Mine in the Cripple Creek District of County, Colorado, in the United States. The purple fluorite marks a fluorine-rich hydrothermal stage. The phonolite anchors it to Cripple Creek's unique volcanic setting, and the calaverite tells the real story. Gold deposited as a telluride along fracture-controlled pathways. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe to High Country Gold and Silver, and ring the notification bell. And drop a comment telling me what district, mine, or telluride mineral you want to see next. Thanks for watching.